What is up, everybody, and welcome back to the channel. We just wrapped up season 2 of The Last of Us, so I figured why not check out a couple of The Last of Us tattoos that are living out there in the wild. Quick disclaimer, this will be a spoiler-free episode, so if you haven't finished the season yet, there's nothing to worry about. So, let's get into it. Once again, welcome back. This first Last of Us tattoo is sent in by Maddie Darkside. And Maddie, you said this was an unfinished project, so there's still a bit of work to do, which you can tell from the outline of one of the clickers on the arm. The clicker that is finished does seem to have a lot of gruesome detail, so that's nice to see. I do wish, however, there was maybe a little more texture when it comes to that top part, just to really push that gore factor of things. Maddie is an artist out of Milwaukee, so being an artist, I feel like we can go a little more in depth with this one. I think the bold outlines that you have on this one are really good, but again, I do wish you pushed just a little more detail in certain areas, like the fungus at the bottom. The Last of Us is a really gritty story, so I wish I could see a bit of that when I look at this tattoo. If we're talking technical application, I do see a little bit of holidays when it comes to that black area underneath the clicker's face, but since you're not finished with the sleeve yet, there's always time to go back into there. I do really like the background behind the clicker's head. I love those like oranges and greens that are just coming out of all that black. It really gives it a nice contrast, especially up against that little flame you've got. When we look at this other tattoo, this is a zombie that hasn't fully transformed into a clicker yet. He probably hasn't been infected for that long, but I'm just not as impressed with this one as I am the other one. Although I really do love the blood streaks that this tattoo has all over the face and whatnot, it just has a lot more realistic feel to it. And that's something that I wish was on the other clicker as well. The shadow underneath the chin I do think could be a little bit darker to really push that face forward. And I'm not sure what this little shape is down here on the shirt. I'm not sure if it's supposed to be a wrinkle or something like that, but it's not really reading as one. But I do really love how this one eye is completely red and bloodshot, and this other eye is just all white. It adds a lot of nice interest to it. I'm hoping that this sleeve isn't just all zombies. I hope this sleeve actually tells the story of The Last of Us in some sort of way or another. Although if that's what your client wanted, you gotta kind of give them what they want. But The Last of Us does have a rich story behind it. It goes pretty deep, so I wish I could see some of that in this arm as well. You wanted to know maybe if there's something that you could add to it, and something that I would like to see with what's already there is maybe some spores in the background. And I know that might be kind of hard to convey in a tattoo like this, but just having all these sporadic colored dots in the background that look like spores can really help show the environment that they're living in. But excellent job, Maddie. I am very curious to see how this thing comes along, and I would love for you to update me when this thing is all finished. Next up, we've got Josh Williams, a tattooer out of the UK, and Josh, you sent over a portrait of Ellie and a nice little silhouette on bottom. Now, the first thing I'm gonna say is this tattoo is extremely well done, but it doesn't really look like Ellie.
I'm not her, you know.
But as I said, this tattoo is extremely well done. I love the technical ability you have in this thing. The dark parts in the hair I do think could use a bit more saturation. I'm not sure if it's healing at the moment or some of that maybe fell out, but when it comes to the black areas, it just looks like there's some spots missing. When it comes to blood, especially on the face, I think a lot of people maybe make the blood too bright, which this blood doesn't look bad, but I do wish there were some darker spots of blood on the face as well. It just really helps push that realism factor. But I love the little shadow around the chin and that orange side glow that it has. It just helps show some dynamic lighting. And the little area at the bottom showing Ellie as a silhouette is super rad. I love how she's got her bow and arrow, which comes from the video game, not so much the TV show, but it's a nice addition nonetheless. I do wish it blended in a little bit more with Ellie's face, maybe bring some of that fungus up into her neck area and things like that, just to help pull them together. Make it not so much two separate images. But overall, I love the color palette that you chose for this tattoo, especially the little red area in the shadow of the nose. It just helps bring a nice overall warmth to the entire thing. But go check out his YouTube page and give him some support. Thank you, Josh, so much for sending that over. Next up, we've got one sent in by Jessaro, a 5-year tattooer out of Georgia. And Jess, you sent over a portrait of Ellie from the TV show, which I do find hilarious, only because if I were getting the tattoo, I would go by the original source material and I would get the video game Ellie. Not for any other reason, or any other reason at all. Overall, this portrait isn't too bad. I can definitely tell it's Bella Ramsey. Although I wish the facial shades were a little more smooth. I can see all the needle marks going in different directions, which may heal out just fine, but as it sits, it's just a little scratchy, for lack of better words. Again, it's not bad. I just don't know of another term to use besides scratchy. Maybe one more pass might help smoothen those things out. To be honest, most of the hair looks fine, except that little part to the right of her face. I'm not sure if it's finished or if it's just got an extremely white highlight, but it almost looks like a spider web. So again, I definitely think this thing could use one more pass just to help smooth them things out and add some extra detail here and there. You know, maybe bring some extra darks in behind the right of her face a little bit, just because the gray that's there matches the gray that's in her shirt and her neck. It all kind of gets a little tonal. But I gotta say, you did an excellent job when it comes to her facial features. It does look just like her. I do see from the video that you sent over a portrait of Joel as well, and similar to what I said to a previous tattoo, I'd like to see more of the story of The Last of Us, not just a bunch of portraits. And I think that's what gets missed in a lot of Last of Us tattoos, is the actual story behind it all. There's so much to pull from if you played the video game. There's just an endless supply of material that you can use for your tattoos. Like maybe a firefly necklace, or as I said before, bringing the environment through the actual piece itself. But again, not a bad job at all, Jess. I just think this thing needs one more pass, but thank you so much for sending that over. All right, real quick, I want to take a break and give a shout out to the sponsor of our channel, Mad Rabbit. Mad Rabbit is a tattoo aftercare company that has something for everyone. Whether you're a new tattooer or a longtime veteran, they've got you covered. So head on over to madrabbit.com and check out all they have to offer. And be sure to use code PONY20 to save 20% off your entire order. All right, let's get back to it. Next up, we've got one sent in from Harlan Kantner out of Bel Air, Maryland. And Harlan, you sent over this clicker tattoo, and I gotta say, this thing is badass. Not only technically, but this thing has a lot of story elements as well. You've got the face of the clicker as well as the moth at the bottom. You've got some of those spores that I was talking about earlier in the background, and also the fern coming around either side. So this thing has got a lot while keeping it pretty simple. And I think that's pretty important when it comes to making a great looking tattoo. Not to overcomplicate things, but still tell the story, like where some of the other tattoos were just lacking a bit. I love the detail of the lines running through the mushrooms. They're faint, but they're there. You can almost feel them. The symmetry is wild. It's almost perfect. However, when it comes to a tattoo like this, since it's organic, I don't necessarily think it would be perfect on either side. I think it would be a little different. But either way, this thing's killer. When you look at the gums of the bottom row of teeth, I love that dark red that's in there next to that light pink. You can definitely tell you took your time on the entire thing, even when it comes to the smaller details, like the moth at the bottom. That thing is damn near perfect. The bright yellows in the background just really push this clicker forward. The composition of this tattoo just keeps my eyes moving throughout the entire thing, and I think that's what a good tattoo is supposed to do. The way you used a gray wash outline to separate the light orange to the dark oranges, it just shows me that you really know what you're doing. Even the shadows below the caps of the mushrooms is just very stark, again showing me this isn't your first rodeo. Personally, I think clicker tattoos are really hard to do because they're not that attractive, but this thing is beautiful, and I would wear the shit out of this thing. Excellent job, Harlan. Thank you so much for sending that over. Next one sent over from Tanya Adam, or Tanya Dam. We'll let you choose what's right. Tanya, this thing has a lot of basic elements, but when they're all put together, it has a very unique take. The black in the lettering is super solid, but when we look at the Firefly emblem itself, there are some holidays showing through, especially on that leftmost side. If you zoom in, you can definitely see some skin showing through. So I would just go back and make sure that's packed fully. The switchblade is a little weak for my taste. I wish there were some sort of outline around the entire perimeter, not just a gray wash outline, but something strong to hold this thing together. What I'm assuming is a blood flow following the butterfly is a nice addition. It almost looks like a beautiful paint stroke. It keeps this thing creative and looking good, because without it, I think this tattoo would be fairly dull. So nice job keeping this thing looking fresh. This tattoo is really not bad. There's not many parts that I don't mind about it, except for the holidays in the black and the switchblade. If you were to have a chance to give this thing another pass, I would definitely go back in those blacks and really just refine that blade and add some nice white highlights to make this thing look metallic. Maybe go through and tidy up that butterfly a bit too, because it does get a little sloppy. I don't really mind that the butterfly has a red outline. I would just make sure you commit and pull that red all the way through to the very end and make it strong. It just looks like that red outline gets a little weak in some parts. But overall, not bad, Tanny. I appreciate you so much for sending that over. Next one comes in from Jesse. You said you tattooed this on yourself. You also said to forgive the shoddy camera work, but I don't necessarily think it's the camera that's shoddy, it's just the work. Definitely not the worst tattoo I've seen by far, but when I look at this first photo, it almost looks like everything is black, and when I look at the last photo, I'm starting to see some purple shine through. So I'm not sure if it's just a weird bruise or bad heel, or if there's actually purple in there, but I definitely can't tell from the first photo. So I guess it's a mixture of both shoddy camera work and a not so great tattoo. You can definitely tell that the head of the moth healed really rough, because I can see some of that scarred tissue showing through. I gotta say the body of this moth does look a little phallic, but that's because this video is sponsored by Fleshlight. I'm just kidding. It's not that bad, but The lines at the top on the moth's wings are also a bit weak. I would just go through and strengthen those up a bit, and fill in the rest of that head again, because it looks like that had a pretty rough heel. But stick with it, Jesse, you'll get the hang of it in no time, I'm sure, and thank you so much for sending that over. Next one is sent in from Caitlyn, and Caitlyn, you mentioned you are the owner of this tattoo. And this is a prime example of keeping something very simple, but clean. Everything is legible, the artist didn't try to pack in too much, and it's a very pretty looking tattoo. Although I do think it would be cool to make those flowers fungus, but it would make this thing a little more gross. But I think the artist did a great job here. It's dainty, it's cute, it's nothing crazy. Not much to say about this one. I do think it's well done. Thank you so much, Caitlyn, for sending that over. Up next, we've got another collector, Luke Carrasco. Luke, you sent over this moth tattoo with some sort of leaves coming out from it. I do really like this tattoo quite a bit. I do like the strong outline that's around the moth separating it from those leaves, and I like how this tattoo has a lot of different textures. The leaves are stippled, but still soft. The fur in the moth is pretty crazy. It looks like real fur. And then you have this heavy outline around the entire moth. It just has an overall nice contrast to it. Not sure what that little star looking thing is coming from the background, but I don't hate it. I do have to say that I like the bottom of this tattoo more than the top, and that's only because it gets a little bit messy when it comes to that star-shaped feature and those little negative space areas. It just becomes a little too hard to read, and I don't think they're very necessary. But overall, I'd give this tattoo a solid 8 out of 10. It does have a lot of nice features. The moth is definitely the star of the show here. I just wish some areas were a little more readable. But thank you, Luke. Nice tattoo. All right, that's gonna be it for the critiques, but you know we gotta give you my favorite tattoo of the episode. And this one's a clear winner. It's gotta be the one sent in by Harlan Kantner out of Bel Air, Maryland. So make sure you go check out his Instagram by the same name. But again, this thing has it all. It really outshines the rest. Like a firefly. Get it? All right, moving on to the featured artist of the week. I know I forgot one a couple weeks ago, and somebody got really pissed at me, and rightfully so. I'll never let that happen again. But this week's featured artist is, I'm gonna butcher this name, Mihails Neverovs out of Latvia. Mihail has this wild front torso tattoo of The Last of Us that has it all. Everything I talked about in this episode. It brought the environment to it with Ellie on horseback looking at a crumbled building. It has Ellie playing the guitar. It has the farmhouse. It has a picture of Joel with the word liars in it. This thing is incredible. And not only is this tattoo incredible, but the rest of his work is incredible as well. His realism is outstanding. Whether it's black and gray or color, he crushes it. It's refreshing to see somebody that's great in both mediums. Make sure you do yourselves a favor, head on over to his page, give him a follow, and let him know I sent you. All right, that's gonna wrap up this episode. Thank you to each and every one of you who submitted their tattoos, and I apologize that I couldn't get through them all. Until next week, no matter what, you just keep finding something to fight for.